Good afternoon. How's it going, everyone? I hope you've been doing well. If you're new here, hi, I'm Miles. I do music stuff. And today's video is going to be a little different than the norm because this is a response to the influx of people that reached out in response to my previous video. For the uninitiated, I previously did a video talking about a recent sort of resurgence of discussion about fake guitar players on the internet, in particular focusing on guys like Lucas Man and other people that have been on Instagram and wherever else, and just sort of my perspective on the whole topic of discussion. And I discussed a couple different things within that topic in terms of my perspective on things, and there were some comments in response to it. So with that all said, let's talk about it. Let me give you a bit of a more elaborate explanation to what I had said in my initial video. But before we do all that, if you haven't already, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. It makes the channel easier to be seen by new people, and it makes you a subscriber to the channel, because according to my analytics, a lot of you watch my videos, but you're not subscribed, which I feel like should be a war crime. Okay. Let's get this party started. By the way, it's water. Don't flag me, YouTube.
After seeing Rings of Saturn play an hour-long set, I have no doubt Lucas played that part.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, there's a lot of instances where these guitar players that hit it big on Instagram or whatever will get contacted by certain companies to come and sit at their booth at NAMM and perform whatever piece of music they heard that blew up on Instagram, and they'll decline to show up because in those cases they program things in such a way where like they literally can't recreate it, or it's just it's the one thing that they have and they're expected to do like an extended period of time performance while they have about 20 seconds worth of material. And yeah, like that's a bit of an issue. But when it comes to someone like Lucas Man, I think like there is the aspect of his live performance that is roped together with his ego in terms of wanting it to be the most perfect thing possible. But last time I checked, the majority of the people that were commenting on this video are guitar players. Are you all telling me that you don't have an ego? You play guitar. Let's be real. Let's be honest here.
It's pronounced govin, like oven, bro.
This actually came up a lot in the comments for this video, and I gotta be honest, in the years that I've been following Guthrie, I've never, ever heard anyone say his last name. Maybe there was one instance where someone pronounced it Govin, and it stuck in my head, but I've never heard anyone say Govin. And you know, the way that it all played out was really funny because I was giving Jacob a hard time about it. But like, legitimately, I've never heard Guthrie's last name pronounced as Govin. So on behalf of myself in regards to the internet, my bad. I feel like Guthrie himself wouldn't have taken so much offense, but who knows? Who knows?
You just compared a backing track to distortion? Are you saying using effect pedals are equivalent to miming to a backing track? Most of your arguments are kind of trash, TBH. Comparing a completely faked take with a pedal makes as much sense as comparing whey protein to mother's milk. Cool video, though. What do you want him to do? Easy. To stop lying. It's just cringe. Also, no idea how you are comparing miming a backing track to distortion.
Okay. So, let's set the groundwork here. In my first video, I was talking about a backing track being an enhancement to the live performance. Whether it be just a double of what the guitar player is playing, or it's a complementary harmony to what the guitar player is playing in real time. That's what I'm trying to say about a backing track. If you're simply not playing anything, that's a different story. If you think someone's miming something on stage, you'll be able to know. Like, there's gonna be a definitive difference. We only know what we see from these videos that other people have captured. But like, if you're there in person, you'll know. I remember a couple of years ago, there was a local band by me, and I won't use names because, you know, as much as I want to, this isn't the time or place. But their vocalist, they're going through one of their songs, and there's a part where they go through a breakdown section and he's doing some guttural vocals between like singing parts. But I noticed that there is a definitive difference in volume from what I hear from the stage where I'm standing versus what I hear coming out of the speakers. And every time there's a scream, he's doing the thing where he's cupping the mic and he's got it by his face and he's thrusting forward. But he's not really doing it. And once that clicked in my head, I said, oh, ew, what are you doing? So now, with that in mind, if you're at a show and you hear this drop in volume from the stage versus what's coming out of the mains and the monitors on stage, like, I think there would be more people that were like, hey, I was at a show and I was front row and I heard just like the pick going across the strings, but there was no sound from the stage. Like, I feel like that there would be more people talking about that. The issue when it comes to guitar that makes this stuff harder to discern in a live setting is that you have a lot of instances where you have bands that are not using like your traditional amp and speaker cabinet on stage. They're using like a Kemper, a Quad Cortex or whatever, and it's going through the mains, and they have something going through the monitors that might be different from what you would anticipate a guitar player wanting to hear through their monitors, you know? And so that's a factor in that regard. But I don't know, I feel like, again, there's a lot of focus being put on this idea of like sorting out these fake guitar players and pointing them out. And is it worth it? Now, as far as enhancements to the guitar in a live setting, let's talk about distortion. So obviously, if you turn an amplifier up loud enough, you'll eventually start to produce naturally occurring distortion. That's a no-brainer. Having a backing track when you're playing guitar serves as adding some girth to what it is that you're playing and, you know, giving the doubling effect that you would otherwise get from, say, a doubling pedal or a delay pedal set to a very short delay. And this gives the impression of depth, consuming more space with your sound. Or even giving the sound of there being multiple guitars. John Petrucci uses a doubler when he's playing live because he's the only guitar player in Dream Theater. But let's talk about some things about the guitar without distortion. So, decent sustain, all the notes are there, you don't have to worry about any outside noise. In this state, we're not able to do things like produce feedback. Harmonic content, it's there, all of it, and we can still play regular riffs on the guitar. Sounds okay. But what if we use a distortion pedal, a unit that allows us to get that distortion that we would otherwise have to get from turning the amplifier up louder, but we can have it at a controlled volume, and it increases the sustain and articulation of the guitar in terms of its functionality overall. Lots of sustain. Feedback. How about our harmonics? That's for all the Steve Vai guys out there. Love you!
I'm so sick of watching people play and then the crazy auto harmony kick in. These videos are highly mixed and produced, but many are portrayed as raw audio. Then I see people playing arpeggios so fast it's obvious they are just touching the frets and miming a sped-up run.
I want to offer some pushback to this idea, because while there absolutely is an abundance of people on the internet that are playing these lines on the guitar, and then before they post the video, they go and they touch up everything in post and make it sound better than it actually did when they initially executed it in real time. But also, there's a series of guitar players out there that when I watch them play, I think, If I did that, it would sound terrible. And yet, I don't have the same touch and feel that they do when it comes to their approach to playing the instrument. Take, for example, Onyx Morales, plays in a group called the Human Complex. He's insanely good. But not only is he good, he's good in real life. He goes to NAMM, someone hands him a guitar, and he sits down with it and just shreds. Like, people are walking by and they're like, why is my face melting? Because he's sitting there, melting faces. And his approach to the guitar, like, I watch his fretting hand, and there's a lot of, like, what if I was doing it would be, like, just flubbed notes. But he's got a different touch and feel, and there's a precision to what he's doing that I simply don't have. There's also Matteo Mancuso, who will play these super elaborate and very fast lines on the guitar, but he's doing it with his fingers in a flamenco style. And whenever I sit down and fingerpick something, this becomes a new appendage on my arm. Like, new fingers, don't know how they work. It's not something that's functional in comparison to when I'm able to use a pick playing a guitar. And even then, in comparison, I'm limited in terms of what he can do on the guitar versus what I can do. But he's just got a different set of abilities than I do. Now, as far as the auto harmony backing track that gets kicked in a live setting, I think what you're referring to is instances where someone is playing and there's a backing track that's triggered at a certain point in the song where it's complementing what the artist on stage is already doing. And this is something that I fully endorse it. I think it's fine. I think it contributes to the overall presentation of the show, where, like, if you are the sole guitarist in a band, but you recorded a song that has multiple guitar parts, having those backing tracks, it simply makes it easier for onlookers to look at it and compare it to what they heard on the record and say, wow, this is really good, while still showcasing what you're able to play. Like, I think that there's no harm in that. And as far as people that are able to play the guitar at lightning speed, as someone who, like I said in the first video, has witnessed Michelangelo Badio in a live setting play these songs that I grew up watching him on videos I downloaded on Kazaa, it can be done. I think it's just a matter of, like, there being very unique humans amongst us in the crowd that happen to have a guitar they have in their hands and have done amazing things with it. Am I saying that's everyone on the internet? Absolutely not. I have a DAW on my computer. I have access to Premiere Pro. I have an iPhone. I know what tricks are going on there. Some people are able to cover it up better than others, but, like, I'm not stupid.
Remember when bands used to intentionally play with unplugged guitars and make it extremely obvious that they weren't playing live when they were forced to mime along to one of their songs for whatever reason? Usually for a TV show of some sort. Nowadays, it's a complete opposite. Pretty sad. What's the point of being a guitarist in a band if you're not going to actually play live at your concerts?
I hear what you're saying, but it kind of ties back to what I was saying in the first video about, like, is the audience really concerned about the musicianship attached to the songs? Or are they just looking to get a show? The truth is that in this modern day, even myself, when I go out and I play either with my original band or with a cover band, more so with the cover band, if you play a song that is like a trendy sound on TikTok, no one recognizes it until it gets to the part they recognize from TikTok. And it's not like they're going to stick around for the rest of the stuff. They hear that and they say, cool. And then they move on. They do whatever they're going to do. Either go outside to go and partake in tobacco products, or, you know, they go to the bar, whatever the case may be. And we've seen this happen with other bigger acts like Pierce the Veil, for example, when there was sort of a resurgence of popularity of their song King for a Day on TikTok. They played at When We Were Young Fest, and there was sort of this influx of people that were like, ooh, I know this song from TikTok. And they played songs from their new record that, like, if you were a fan, you were into it. But, like, there was a notable difference between the response to songs like Past the Nirvana and then the response to King for a Day, especially when Kellen Quinn came out. Or, for example, a band like Kiss. There's still people paying to go and see Kiss when it's like painfully obvious that they're using backing tracks, they're miming to vocal tracks. It's basically karaoke, but with like the members of the band performing their own songs, but not even really performing them. And in that instance, people are paying for tickets to go see the show because they want to see Kiss. They don't care about how good Gene Simmons is on bass or whatever. They want to see Kiss so they can say they saw Kiss. Either they're keeping the faith as a long-term fan, or they're checking a box on the list of bands they've been able to see live so that they have bragging rights in that regard. Like, I personally would never go and see Kiss live because, number one, I think Gene Simmons kind of sucks. I think he sucks as a person. And has some lukewarm takes. They're not hot takes. They're just like, it's like old man yelling at the clouds kind of stuff. But also, I know, 4 songs from Kiss that I think are decent? And then, like, there's a whole other collection of songs in their discography. And I have to sit through those? No, I'm good. No, thank you. Plus, they're charging Legacy Act prices for tickets now, so, like, nope. Hard pass. As far as the musicianship attached to live performances, a lot of that is self-indulgent. And in most cases, that's going to be the case no matter what. No matter what period of time you're in, if you want to put on a good show and showcase your talents as a musician, that's on you. That's something that you want to fulfill for yourself as the musician. And what you want as a musician is very different than what an audience wants from an entertainer. You'll hear people talk about it now on social media, but there's a big difference between being a musician and being an entertainer. And I hate it. I hate it too. I know. Stop yelling at your phone. You're on the bus right now. People can hear you. Stop yelling. I want to be able to showcase the passion and skill that was put into the music that I'm making. But I also know at this point in my career that for most people, that's secondary. A lot of it comes down to, is it something that I can hum along to? Is it a good song? What's its chart rating? Stupid things that to me are honestly irrelevant, but significantly make a difference in modern times. It's why bands like Polyphia are viewed as sort of this anomaly in terms of their success, where they have this like rabid audience of fans that come out to their shows and sing along to riffs. It's something that you don't see every day, but I think that they scratch a particular itch for guitar players, and they like cross the threshold of making guitar player music for guitar players that it has a greater appeal than something like, I don't know, a band like Winter Sun or something like that. Like, I appreciate Winter Sun, but could I sit through an entire set of Winter Sun? I don't think so. That would be like going to sit through an entire set of Yngwie Malmsteen. I'd hear one song and be like, cool, I got it. I don't need to hear like the other 13 songs on the list. Even if you look at a band like Extreme, there was that period of time where they had like a whole bunch of people talking about the solo in that song Rise. I believe it was the song Rise. And Nuno it was amazing. What he was doing on there was incredible. But like, it came and went. It was almost insignificant in the grand scheme of things, unless you're a guitar player. And typically, if you're able to leap that fence from being an impressive guitar player to being like someone who's seen as a great songwriter or whatever the case may be, like that's where the real significance is for audiences. Like something that I learned a long time ago when I was still playing in a deathcore band is treat your audience like they're stupid. And I know that's going to ruffle some feathers, but hear me out. If you're trying to get real technical with your songwriting in that capacity and you're trying to write a breakdown that's in like 7/16 or it's in alternate time signatures and it only makes sense because they're like back to back against each other and you have this hemiola thing going on top of that, if the audience can't bop their head to it, you lost them. You lost them. Maybe not everyone. You might have a couple mathematicians in the audience that are like counting numbers like they're Rain Man, but the rest of them are going to be like standing with their cup of beer that they paid $40 for at the venue, being like, what? Do they even know what they're doing?
The problem with doing this isn't the output. Most people don't care how music is produced as long as the person is honest about the process to begin with. That's the problem with Lucas. There's obviously a lot of editing in his music, and attempts to make the music seem cleaner and perfect live, but he isn't honest about it. This is an issue for people wanting to make this type of music, because on one hand, people like Lucas, who obviously take a lot of pride in being super clean and technical, deny the amount of editing needed to achieve this sound, which gives the impression that editing so heavily is bad, while on the other hand, doing a bunch of editing to be so clean that it can't possibly be played by a human, making the barrier to entry impossible to hit. This makes people believe that it's impossible to do this, and they should just give up. It only serves Lucas in the long run because it inflates his ego, while other artists are tricked into not even trying. This is why people call it out.
So I have sort of a different perspective on this particular take because as a music teacher, one of the things that I tell my students to stop doing is trying to replicate their favorite guitar players. And I say that with the fact in mind that you're never going to become your favorite guitar player. I grew up absolutely obsessed with Vernon Reid. I would go to any and every Living Color show whenever they were in town, and I would be at the front barricade just gawking at this man's fingers while he was playing his solos and just trying to pick things apart. But there's so many things about his playing that I'm never going to be able to do, and I've tried. For example, he's one of these guitar players that picks his strings on the guitar like Zakk Wylde. It's like all forearm, and it's like almost under the strings. And yet somehow, he's blistering fast. And he's playing so many notes in such a manner where he's utilizing chromaticism and incorporating all these different scales together that, like, if you can't slow it down and pick it apart, you're not able to even know what he's doing. And from the outside looking in, you might just think that he's just playing random notes. And I've seen this man play so many times, and I've watched him do a solo on so many different occasions, different solo every time, and it's note for note, just playing it, killing it, improvised most likely. And it's just like, I eventually got to a place where I said, okay, he has his own lane. He's in his own lane, and that's okay. I've come to that realization when it comes to Polyphia stuff, when I've tried to pick apart Tim Henson stuff. I realize that there's a lot of factors that go into what he's doing on the guitar that either I can really adapt to my own playing in terms of my approach and attack and dynamics, or I can just simply accept that, like, I can figure out some of the riffs, but, like, I'm never going to be Tim Henson. And with all that said, I'm also never going to be Django Reinhardt. I'm never going to be in a position where I only have two fingers that I can functionally use on my fretting hand to play all the notes that I want to play on the fretboard of the guitar. But stylistically, I can come close to what he's doing. It's going to be different still. As far as the barrier to entry, I think that the best thing that you can do if you're a young guitar player getting into music and being in a position where it's 2025 and you have infinite resources at your disposal, rather than look down on yourself and your abilities, just look at everything as a challenge. Look at everything as a challenge and just go into it and just do the best that you can. Because at the very least, you come out of it doing these things that have been created by other guitar players, but now you have your own spin on it. We're at a point as a society that there is an abundance of incredible guitar players out there in the world. And we only really know about them because we have the availability of social media and video platforms like YouTube. When I was growing up, the only resource I had was like tiny QuickTime videos on websites or videos that I would download from Morpheus or Kazaa that probably had a virus attached to it that would ruin my parents' computer. Sorry, Mom and Dad. But the scope has expanded like exponentially. And so it can be a bit intimidating. And yeah, if you get intimidated by it, that's totally understandable. There's plenty of times that I've been perusing Instagram and I see some tiny 5-year-old from Japan playing 24 Caprice. And I'm just like, why do I have all these guitars? Why don't I just throw them away? I'll bring them out to the backyard, have the most epic bonfire, and call it a day. But if you're looking at musicianship as a whole as something of a competition, you're failing yourself before you even start. You should be looking at the guitar as an extension of yourself. And if you want to play fast, you'll find a way to play fast. If you want to be really good in terms of your interpretation of jazz music, you'll figure it out. You have the resources available to you. But like, if you were one of my students and you sat down across from me and you said, I want to learn how to be Sinister Gates, I'm going to tell you, I can't teach you how to be another person. I can teach you how to play like them, but that's the best that I can do. The rest is up to you and how far you want to push it.
SV uses Fernandez sustainers. Do proper research.
I gotta say, it's kind of weird because I made one singular comment about Steve Vai. Part of it was just like critiquing his showmanship when it comes to using a sustainer on his guitar, but like the other part was that I just said that I don't like him. And everyone came after me trying to pick it apart as though I was saying that he's not a good guitar player, that he can't play, and all these things. And it's like, you guys are looking for a fight somewhere where there isn't one. And as far as the Fernandez sustainers, here's the deal. Fernandez sustainers versus Sustainiacs. What are they doing? What's the function of this pickup on the guitar? Is it creating a magnetic field that continues the vibration of the strings so that it's an infinite sustain of the strings vibration? Oh, weird. So it's almost like it's two separate products that do the same thing. And I know you're doing the guitar player thing right now and you're saying, oh, but it's different. It's got a different thing to it because it's from Fernandez versus Sustainiac. It's the same thing. Settle down. I'm sorry I insulted your God King. All right, like Steve Vai, he's a great guitar player. I'm not going to take that away from him. I saw Crossroads. He's incredible. All right, but when I watch him perform something like that song that he did with that dumb guitar that Ibanez made for him, the Hydra, I think it's called, it's like, okay, cool, great. This wouldn't have happened if you weren't in the position where you could call Ibanez and say, hey, can you make me this ridiculous monstrosity? Like, I don't know, for me, it feels like a trick. And I'm really not interested in tricks on the guitar. I'm interested in like musicianship. It's the same thing when I have students that come in and they only want to learn a portion of a song that they heard or saw someone playing on Instagram or on TikTok. It's like, okay, but like, what if you learn the song? Because not only are you going to learn this part, you're going to learn the rest of the song and the general structure of the song so that if you want to write your own stuff, you at least have this example of song structure in mind. And, you know, at the very least, if you try to show off to a group of people at a party or something, you don't have to run into the dreaded instance of someone saying, but do you know the rest of the song? And you being like, oh, and having to explain how like you only know this part because you heard it on TikTok. It was a sound sample on TikTok. It was on Instagram and you saw this guy play it and it was only 20 seconds worth of the song. Like, no one wants to hear excuses. They want to hear you play the guitar. That's it. So just learn how to play the guitar. Anyway, with all that said, I'm still not a fan of Steve Vai. I'm sorry.
This will age bad.
Which part's going to age bad? The part where the message I was trying to convey was generally received in a positive manner, where at least people understood where I was coming from, whether they agreed or disagreed? Or are you just another person that's upset that I said that I don't like Steve Vai? I feel like you're another person in that camp. But, sorry, let me know how it ages. I guess that means you're sticking around. You're going to like and subscribe.
Personally, I'm just sick and tired of people like Lucas and Charles gaslighting guitarists, producers, and fine-tuned ears that know better. Lucas and Charles are both extremely good guitarists and insanely creative writers. But like how Lance Armstrong was a godlike cyclist who felt the need to cheat for that world-class inhuman edge and lie to people who knew better until he was undeniably caught. And dude, I've listened to your playing. I think your ear and ability are more than honed enough to understand when you're hearing something that isn't clearly replicable in a live setting.
So it was a long response that you gave me, which like is fine. I'm happy to read whatever you have to say. But to condense it down to simpler terms, I kind of got the gist of what you were trying to get at with that first paragraph. In which case, in response to what you had said, I would present someone like Ichika Nito. To which, when I first saw a video of him playing, I immediately concluded that he was speeding it up, that it was just faster than it actually was, because like even the vibratos when he was playing didn't sound natural, and he's just going from these single note passages and then jumping right into these elaborate chords, usually playing in open tunings or on a guitar that has like 20 strings on it and all this other stuff. So it's like, no, that's not real. That's not real. But the truth is that there's video evidence of him being able to play that good and that fast. And it's in a live setting or it's in a different sort of studio setting. Either way, he's actually executing the stuff that he's able to play. And I think that a factor that doesn't get put into account when it comes to this sort of stuff is a player's relationship to an instrument. Because if you play guitar in a passive manner, like if you're an adult, you have a family, you have a job, you have multiple jobs, you're doing a bunch of stuff in your daytime hours, and then when you come home, you fiddle around with the guitar a bit, and like, you're decent, you're proficient. That is not the same as someone whose entire day is guitar. Like, think about if you're a grown adult, if you're in your 30s or later in life, think about how your relationship has changed with the guitar versus now and when you were a teenager, when you were in high school. I know for me that when it came to the guitar in high school, that was the first thing I did as soon as I got home from school. I didn't care about homework, that didn't matter. But playing the guitar was like my go-to thing. And that was all I cared about. I was obsessed with it, and I had no focus on anything else. Even when I was dating girls back in high school, they were like, "You're gonna stay home and play guitar?" And I'm like, yeah. But as we get older, in addition to your body just changing, your priorities change, whether you like that to be the case or not. And so, like, if it's not something that you're constantly focusing and refining every day, your playing abilities is going to change. And your perspective on the guitar is going to change. This is also like a genre-specific thing as well. So, you know, it's different. It's different from one player to another. I think with a guy like Ichikanito, it's something that he does every day for hours at a time. I couldn't picture playing a game of catch with him. I don't know if he could do that. But like, if we sat down and played guitar, he'd be playing circles around me. I would quit guitar. I would give him my guitars as an apology for even offering to play guitar with him. And as far as the production side of presenting what it is that you're doing as a guitarist, whether it be a live setting, but more specifically like a studio setting, like there's going to be some polishing of things going on. Either you're making sure there's no loose ends as far as like when a note starts and ends, whether this be chords or palm mutes or single notes, or whether it be adding harmonies, whatever the case may be. Like, you can get really outlandish with the stuff that you're doing, but whether or not you want to make it so that you're executing all that stuff in a live setting, that's kind of up to you as an artist as well. An example of this sort of thing would be bands like Between the Buried and Me, where they have these weird phrases where it's like bass, guitar, guitar, and it's like in fast succession, and they'll do it, and I hear it on the record, and I'm like, oh wow, that's crazy. But like, that's something that like you gotta practice in order to have it down every night of a tour. And not everyone's that dedicated. Like, deep down, it's almost like maybe not everyone should be a musician. It's almost like this idea that music is something that can be done by everyone is a manufactured concept made up by companies that are selling guitars and music lessons. But with that said, if you want music to have conviction and authenticity to it, then you, as an individual, should be the one to carry the torch to make that happen. And then you'll find like-minded people along the way that are going to see what you're doing and agree with it and endorse it and support it. Because truthfully, if you're spending your time talking about guys like Lucas and Charles from Buried Alive, it's not doing anything productive. If anything, it's boosting their engagement on social media and it's making them more popular. And all it's doing is just giving the green light to other people to say like, oh, this is what I gotta do to start getting endorsements and free guitars from companies. Okay, I'm gonna make some songs where I'm hitting the whammy bar and doing like a bunch of flutters, but I'm playing on a 9-string, so it's going like doo-doo wham, and like all these weird sounds, making it sound like a 8-bit video game soundtrack. And like, it's not anything substantive. And if anyone asks them to play live, they can just say, nah, and that's it. But I also am not one to discount the abilities of Charles and Lucas, because I think Charles can actually play. I think him and his wife are really proficient in what they do. I'm just not a fan of what he's doing. And that's fine. Who cares?
I get the thing with backing tracks 100%, as long as you don't try and act like it's your live playing. If I were recording a song, there'd be at least 4 guitar lines, an impossibility when playing live. Could you imagine an 8-piece band with 5 guitarists?
Exactly. If you're trying to maintain a touring budget, you're not going to bring an orchestra with you out on tour. You're not going to bring a surrogate band with you on tour, unless you're literally Pink Floyd. In that case, have at it. Do your thing. The rest of us are going to be getting a U-Haul van and trailer, and we're going to tackle whatever we can within a week's time, and then we're going to go back to our jobs. So we're doing the best that we can. And if that means that having some backing tracks with harmonies and other rhythmic guitars going on in order to better present your band's sound in a live setting, then what's the problem with that? What is the issue? I understand the idea of someone theoretically just like being successful off of having no talent, simply holding the guitar while a backing track plays and they go on the neck of the guitar. I get that. If you see that, you should call it out. But is that what we're talking about?
It's not fake guitar wrists. It's fake guitar playing.
Well, I mean, frankly, I don't know if I even need to validate your opinion, because do you have spell check on your phone?
I've been a purist guitarist first and foremost, but as I transitioned into the box over a decade ago, I slowly became just as much as a sound designer guitarist for the exploration and enjoyment factor. Most of that stuff turns out to be damn near impossible to ever be able to perform a playthrough live. I like the it just sounds cool approach, and don't put much caring into the guitar playing skill if that is mode of creation. Still need to learn your scales and circle of fifths, kids.
And I totally agree. I spent many years of my upbringing with guitar wanting to create otherworldly sounds, stuff that didn't sound like the guitar, on the guitar, which meant that I was relying on effects from different manufacturers. My inspirations were people like Monkey and Head from Korn, Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine, Vernon Reid from Living Colour. And if I could come up with something that sounded nothing like a guitar in its final form, I felt like I succeeded at something. And as I got older and had to start notating my guitar parts for copyright reasons, I realized like I should stop making weird sounds that have no notation notes for them. I should just start like writing actual guitar parts. But like also just creatively, I was in a different place where I was compared to where I was as a younger man. And as you get older in terms of your creativity, the hope is that you go from being just simply a guitar player who's interested in making your guitar part sound cool to being a songwriter who's writing songs that sound cool, that happen to have guitar in them. And there's going to be different perspectives along that entire spectrum of guitar players, but you know, like, I'm of the mindset personally to just kind of like let people live, like just let them do their thing.
I get not being into Steve Vai's music, but are you really saying he's only good because of effects and pedals? Because that is nonsensical. Dude was shredding before you were born. He can play, and play very well.
Again, not saying Steve Vai's not a good guitar player. I never said he was a bad guitar player. I'm not implying that he's relying on effects in order to be able to perform in a live setting. That's not what I was saying. I think that your engagement ring to Steve Vai is too tight on your finger, and it's cutting off circulation from just not only your hand, but up to your brain. And you're a medical mystery. Somehow you have a vein going from this finger up to here, and you should go to a doctor, because that stuff's weird. It's weird, man.
I consider myself a guitarist on an amateur level, not a musician. To me, musicians have a vast understanding of music that has a wide range of playing. Not just with guitar, music can be just that to a listener or a player without fully understanding the theory, or it's simply noise. Noise is music. Music is noise. It's the way it's played and heard. Mistakes are to be made to learn from. And unfortunately, it seems most social media platforms are based on followers and views. I play live on my personal Facebook account for like 8 years now. It's for entertainment, and the mistakes I make are just that, showing others that if you are into guitar but are worried about people making fun of you because you're not very good or whatever the reason may be, to not to and share what you like. I get why many musicians, guitarists that are really good that have a big following don't show their mistakes. What I'd like to see is a beginner start posting live, and over the years get much better, kind of what I have done over the years. But unfortunately, a person can't play live because it's all about popularity, follows, likes, money. Anyway, good vid.
And this is true. This is sort of a driving force behind the motivation of what's been going on with the way that people are presenting their guitar playing online. It wasn't too long ago that guitar players started getting picked up and endorsed by companies because of stuff that they're posting to YouTube. And so with that being an upcoming trend, everyone followed suit. It's the same thing when there's a band that has a big break in the music industry. They do something unique, and then all of a sudden there's a bunch of copycat bands that come up right behind them. At the root of it, posting to social media has gone from being sort of this thing that you would do to kind of say to the world like, hey, look at me, look at this thing that I can do, to being sort of a business portfolio that you're presenting to these companies that potentially will contact you for business inquiries. And overall, I think it sucks. I think that it sucks that there's so many talented people out there, and only really a handful get to work their way through because they know how to manipulate the search engines, how to present themselves on social media so that they're the prettiest and they have the brightest backgrounds. They have the money to do these things. And it's just another form of payola that has existed in music all this time. I absolutely see the value in watching someone who's figuring out guitar at an early stage, making their mistakes, but like watching them progress. I see so much more value in that than watching someone play to a track of one of their songs. They're playing the guitar part on top of like the drum and bass to it. Like, that's cool. I'm impressed. I think it's great. But like, it doesn't have the same substance to it.
Capitalism ruins art.
This is a good comment. I agree with it. I found it interesting that there was a bunch of people that kind of didn't understand what you were trying to convey with the comment. But interestingly enough, I have a video talking about this coming up soon. So if you haven't already, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. You should have did it when I first told you to do it.
This is starting to become a trend, more and more fakes and more YouTubers covering fakes.
Yeah. Because we understand that if you put out something profound visually and audibly for the guitar, that you're going to get a response to it. If you repost that and you offer commentary in response to it, you're going to get a response to that too. So, like, unfortunately, it's the nature of social media in modern times. I'm old enough to remember when I first started posting to YouTube, and it was just like, I'd still have the file name as the title of the video. No hashtags or anything like that. It was just like, here you go. And it would still get a bunch of comments from random people. But like, we've come a long way. Everything's been, what do they call it? Mr. Beastified. And so you either sink or you swim. And that's what everyone's been doing. And if you want to maintain your integrity when it comes to guitar playing and musicianship, I fully endorse that. But understand that you're up against an entire ocean of people that are polishing up everything that they're doing so that it's way better than anything that you could just do with your iPhone seated up against the pillow on your bed while you play your guitar and the lens is focused on your shin. You know, so authenticity kind of takes a back seat. We like to pretend it hasn't, but...
So if a guitarist puts his reliance into an amp for a show and it fails so he can't do the show, he isn't a good guitarist?
I mean, like, is that a real question that you're asking? Because, like, it's not the same. It's not the same as being an entire band who's unable to perform their set on their individual instruments without a singular laptop. This is in reference to what I was saying about falling in reverse, so I can only imagine who this commenter is. I'm sure they've been in my comments before when I've like had a negative critique of Ronnie Radke. But there's been many instances where I've seen bands where like the backdrop has gotten unhooked from behind where the drum riser is, and all of a sudden falls on top of the drummer, and he's still able to play throughout the song. And like everyone in the audience has found it hilarious. But they also see like how awesome it is that the person on drums was able to persevere and still make it through the song, at least to some extent. Even if they had to stop the song momentarily to get reoriented, everyone has a moment to be like, oh yeah, they're human and we're having fun here. This is all fun. This isn't American Idol. We're not judges judging the band. Like, imagine how cool it would be if Falling in Reverse came out, Ronnie Radke comes out and says, hey, listen, so our computers got stolen, but we still want to put on a show for you guys, so we're going to do a series of acoustic songs. Would that be all right with you guys? I feel like the entire audience would be floored. They would love that. They would be excited. Not even excited, ecstatic. But to cancel an entire show because your laptops got stolen that have the cues for your lights and all the changes for your guitars and things like that, like, that means that you don't know how to change from one setting to another manually. That means that you've let go of any sort of agency that you have over your signal chain as a guitar player, in this case, and someone else is responsible for all that stuff, which to me is crazy. The idea of having everything automated in that capacity, and then I just like walk out with a wireless system and my guitar? Nope. Won't catch me. Won't be me. Even wireless systems I'm weary about, because every so often you can have a problem. You can have someone that's interfering with the reception that you're getting from the receiver and then cuts out. It's like a whole thing. I've had it happen before. So like, more often than not, if you see me play live, I have a cable running from my guitar. But yeah, like, if you can't find a way to make something work in some sort of capacity, even if you did a shortened set, I don't know, that makes me look at you differently as a band. I feel like you're less talented because you don't have the creativity to figure out an alternative to the norm in terms of your live set.
Is the greatest and smartest thing a left-handed joke? Because if so, then I approve.
Yeah, it was a joke. It was a good joke. And by good joke, I mean it's true. It's absolutely true. Never forget that.
Except he can, and we can clearly hear the backtrack solo the same that we can hear in the studio and can't hear his real guitar playing.
So while I won't be the sole defender of Lucas Mann here, I will say that I used to work at a place where we had many instances where very well-established guitar players came through and they did demos for an audience in store. And when they would play through well-known songs by them, more often than not, they were playing along with the song. They weren't playing along with like an isolated drum and bass track. The established guitar part was still there. Did it take away from the live performance? No, because most normal people, when they go and they see their favorite guitar player play live, they're happy to just see them play. Which, like, for the record, stop being this guitar player that goes out, has their arms folded, and is evaluating every live performance that you go to and judging the guitar player based on what they're doing and what you're hearing. There's going to be aspects of a live show that are going to be structured so that it's similar from one night to the next. And plus, like, you're allowed to have fun. You're allowed to enjoy yourself. You paid to be there. Stop being such a tight ass. And one could argue that the backing track is louder than their guitar, but like, if that was the case, again, I think there'd be more people pointing it out.
I have no problem with pulling out a wrong note or two in the mix. Last thing I want to hear is a bad note. It's not really that easy to film and play perfectly every note.
Absolutely. Whenever I post clips to social media, I try to have it be something I do in one take without any extra edits. But there's been times where I've had to do multiple takes of a line in order to splice it together to make one cohesive line overall. And it's not that I'm a bad player, it's that whenever I press the record button on my camera, my body says, how do these work? And that's not just me. I have students and I have other people that I'm friends with that tell me the same thing when it comes to recording. As soon as they press that red button, whether it be in their DAW or on their camera, they freeze up. They have to kind of like get themselves settled in to figure out how to do stuff. But again, this also goes back to the concept of familiarity with your instrument. For a long time when I was in my band in high school, and you would still go to a studio to get stuff recorded, my whole thing was, I'm going to go and I'm going to do my parts and I'm going to do everything in one take. So then I'm going to be done with 5 songs for this EP, and I'm going to be done in 30 minutes. And the sound engineer's going to be pissed. And I'm done. I'm packing up my stuff, and my day has been done. It hasn't even been an hour. But as I get older and the less time that I dedicate to the stuff that I'm trying to be able to play, it's not as fluent as it used to be. And I think if I dedicated more time to what it is that I do as far as my original stuff, it would be easier to recall that stuff.
The difference between present dudes with hyper-speed shredding and Mr. Steve Vai.
Oh my god, another Steve Vai thing. Okay, I'm sorry I said anything about your God King. Okay, anyway, I think the takeaway from all this is that if you dislike a guitar player, if you think that they're being disingenuous with what it is they're doing, you call them out. And if they respond to you and you don't like their response, simply don't listen to them anymore. That's all you can do. When it comes to guitar players and the so-called guitar community, we're pretty good about kind of weeding out the people that seem like they're being inauthentic. I think that Lucas Mann is a capable guitar player. I think that as far as the editing that goes into the final production of whatever he's putting out with Rings of Saturn, some people don't like. And I also think that some people don't realize that everyone, when it comes to their studio releases, is doing all the polishing they can possibly do. And even adding stuff that they otherwise wouldn't have in a live setting. If you watch Tim Henson's video talking about playing God and how he went about recording that, he'll even talk about how there's like the part, I forget what he calls it, but like these certain aspects of sort of the outro of the song where he adds an octave and some like sparkle to it and just like really like accentuates it, enhances it. Is it something that could be replicated in a live setting? No. Does it matter? No. But yeah, like at the end of the day, if you're doing something that sounds cool and you're having fun with it and you're not lying to people, then that's like the most important thing. If Lucas is lying about everything, then clearly everyone knows. Like, okay, fine, whatever. As far as the influence that plays in terms of young guitarists getting into playing guitar, again, I encourage anyone and everyone that plays guitar or has an interest in getting started with guitar to not let that be an influence. Like, let the guitar be something that you create with it. Because you don't know what you're going to want to do. You might get into playing guitar with the intention of doing something like a Nirvana sort of thing. But then find yourself later on wanting to do something more along the lines of Dream Theater. Who uses a doubler pedal in a live setting, by the way. Enhancing his sound. In a stereo mix. Because he's the one guitar player. But yeah, really that's where I'm at with everything. I don't think it needs to be this like crazy critical thing. But here we are. Unfortunately, there was a good portion of comments that were just being critical about the fact that I said that I don't like Steve Vai. So, you know, and completely misinterpreting what I said. But that's on you. I'm sorry you feel that way. That's all I got for today. I thank you guys for sticking around with me through this video. I appreciate all of you that commented and reached out in any capacity. And if you found this video to be interesting and informative, and you haven't already, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. It's free, man. It's free. You don't got to pay a cent. You just got to click on that stuff. I mean, you might have to pay for your internet, but like you've been paying for internet. Unless like you got some really cool neighbors. In which case, like, tell them to like and subscribe too. Because like, they're helping you out. They can help me out too. I'm just saying. And if you like what I'm doing here and you want to contribute more than just liking and subscribing, below in the description I'll have a link to my Patreon page where you can check out all the perks that are attached to your support over there. Okay, y'all, that's all I got for this evening. Hopefully this video will be out soon. My internet's been out for I don't know how long. That's why there's been so much time between this video and the previous one, but it's coming soon. I promise. You guys are great. Stay safe. Drink some water. Some water in a can if you want. And keep playing. Peace.